Rosalind Franklin, scientist, discoverer, icon. Rosalind Franklin has become famous as a woman scientist who is denied credit for her key contribution to the discovery of DNA. She was most obviously absent from the podium when scientists James Watson, Francis Crick, and Maurice Wilkins received Nobel Prizes in 1962 for their contributions toward the discovery of the structure of DNA. As years have gone by, we have unraveled the truth. Rosalind Franklin's discoveries were stolen from her and reused by James Watson and Francis Crick. She was born on the 25th of July in 1920, and by the age of 15, Rosalind Franklin had known she wanted to excel in a career of science. Although this goal seems quite possible in our time, Rosalind had many more obstacles in her path. Her father constantly put her down for her interest in science because it was almost impossible for women to have such a career. She was very fortunate to attend St. Paul's Girls' School in London, which allowed her to take physics and chemistry as courses. By 1938, Franklin was at Cambridge University to study chemistry. In February of 1947, Rosalind made her way to Paris, France, where she began to work at Laboratoire Central de Services Chimiques, translated Central Laboratory of Chemical Services. Here she began learning different techniques and uses of X-ray diffractions from Jacques Marin, whom she worked closely with at the laboratory. Rosalind Franklin's next move was her most significant. In 1951, she was offered a 3-year scholarship to King's College in London. With her new skills in X-ray diffraction, she was asked to help use X-ray crystallography to solve the question of what the structure of DNA was. X-ray crystallography is the study of looking through a crystal to obtain a 3-dimensional molecular structure of a protein. Maurice Wilkins was the head researcher for this project, and he was not present when Franklin was hired. Once he returned, he mistook her for an assistant and not a partner. This poorly kicked off their relationship working together. Meanwhile, in London, James Watson and Francis Crick were also two of many searching for the structure of DNA. Watson and Crick had been using model building to represent their discoveries in the structure of DNA. They had many trials and errors, including one in front of Franklin, where she mocked their model and pointed out every reason it could not be correct. Watson and Crick had created an embarrassing failure and quickly began remodeling. Watson's attitude towards Rosalind was quite impolite. He called her nicknames like Rosie, which caught on to the men in the laboratory Rosalind worked in. In an interview with The Guardian, Watson states, "I'd never really thought of scientists as autistic until this whole business of high-intelligence autism came up. There is probably no other explanation for Rosalind's behavior." This shows Watson's attitude towards Rosalind's work and her intelligence. At this point, Maurice Wilkins, co-researcher with Rosalind Franklin, was beginning to feel cut out and uninvolved in the problem he and Franklin had been attempting to solve. He began speaking and sharing information with an old friend of his, Francis Crick. Watson and Crick began to discover new information on DNA based on Rosalind's work without her knowing. In 1952, Franklin discovered the sharpest image of the B form of DNA, where the shape is now obviously seen as a double helix by the clear X shape in the photo, which she entitles Photo 51. She puts it aside while she now attempts to find Form A. Through Franklin's process in finding the structure of Form A of DNA, Photo 51 makes its way to Wilkins, who passes the photo along to Watson. Watson and Crick used the photo to create the first ever correct model of DNA. Next, Watson and Crick invite Franklin to view their new and improved model. In The Double Helix, a book written by James Watson, he states how quickly she verified the model to be correct surprises him. There was so much data of hers used to create the model, she did not realize that she was standing in front of her own work. James Watson believes that without Rosalind Franklin's work, Crick and Watson would have discovered the model on their own. Considering Watson and Crick had based the majority of their work off of stolen information from Franklin, it is not believed they could have reached that goal. With Rosalind's work, they won the race to find the structure of DNA, as well as being rewarded with a Nobel Peace Prize. Even with all of her information being stolen and reused, she was still never given the credit she deserved for the work she had done. In 1954, Rosalind Franklin went to Birkbeck Labs to work on the structure of plant viruses and tobacco mosaic viruses, which is a virus that causes mosaic disease in tobacco. She wrote many papers but had trouble working due to her misfortune of ovarian cancer. Rosalind Franklin passed away on April 16, 1958, of this disease. Six years after Rosalind's death in 1962, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins received a Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, with no credit given to Rosalind Franklin. Along with Watson, Crick, and Wilkins, another Nobel Prize was given to John Desmond, a co-worker of Rosalind's at Birkbeck Labs, who was involved in the tobacco mosaic research with her. He won the Nobel Prize for the work he had done with Rosalind. Through all of her research and discoveries, Rosalind Franklin overcomes all obstacles and complications and always manages to pull through and work harder. Becoming a female chemist in the 1950s, mastering X-ray diffractions, or recovering the secret of life, Rosalind did it all. She was determined, strong, intelligent, and admirable. Through her premature death, contributions to the discovery of DNA, and misogynist treatment by the males that scientifically worked with her, Franklin has become a female icon for women in science. Rosalind Franklin is someone who pushed through the put-downs of others who did not believe in her, such as her father, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins. She became a legend in the world of science. This graph shows the percentage difference between men and women in science within different countries. Women in science today following in Rosalind's footsteps are now common and not few in number. Considering women in science in Rosalind's day were mostly excluded from scientific practices, these percentages are quite impressive, with 4 countries holding 50% or more women in their scientific staffs. Rosalind Franklin's story has made an impact on science, and without her discoveries, our knowledge on DNA would be very limited today.